Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to my greenhouse. My name is Joe. In today's video, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update of things going on in my greenhouse, in my cactus and succulent collection. It's a bit of a hodgepodge of different topics, but hopefully equally interesting to you. It's February and we're still in the middle of the dormancy period here on the Northern Hemisphere, and so it's relatively cool here in the greenhouse, but nevertheless there is a lot ongoing. It's relatively messy in here at the moment because I've got, like I say, quite a few activities ongoing, and that's exactly what I'd like to actually show you. Some of the things that are, just routine tasks or things that just need to be done this time of the year. And also some special items that are ongoing in terms of upgrading inside the greenhouse or upgrading with the collection. So let me just go ahead and show you some of those activities ongoing just right now. Now, apart from a lot of potting and repotting that I'm doing, something else that was really important for me was to actually optimize on the space, on the shelving space in my little greenhouse. There's not much space I have in here, but there's always a lot of plants, a growing number of plants. That's the scary bit. So I've got to become more and more creative and inventive about, really using every available space in the greenhouse. Now, I've got to do that obviously taking into account that I'm not creating by putting in additional shelving or layers of shelves, that I'm not creating too much shade, because I still obviously want to have the main growing areas for the cacti and the other succulents as bright and sunny as possible. Having said that, though, there are quite a lot of succulent plants and also cacti that do appreciate, a little bit of shade during the day. And so it's one of these points I've been making in previous videos, that it's quite useful and, in fact, really important to always know which of your plants are the ones that really need very sunny, very warm locations, relative to those that actually appreciate a bit of half shade or shade. And with the help of that knowledge, I can then actually create mini climatic zones, if you like, mini areas with differing brightness, differing temperature, even in a small greenhouse like mine. So I'll have some of those cacti that really love the hot and sunny locations. I'll have those up, towards the upper part of the greenhouse, close to the roof glazing, where they'll have direct sunlight, intense UV. And then I'll have those plants that actually are in the half shade, or some even in the full shade. And they appreciate maybe, a slightly cooler, shadier spot than those I was just mentioning in the bright full sun. Some of the new shelving I've put in, like I say, I've made it actually really quite narrow. So in order to still have quite a bit of sunlight passing, past that narrow top shelf onto the main shelf below. But the other thing I've done is the drip trays of those upper shelves I've actually just built myself. I've glued acrylic glass panes together. So I've got acrylic glass that, of course, being transparent allows light still to pass past the pots and all the spaces where there's space for light to pass through. And so with those transparent drip trays, I'm still creating a little bit of light, or I'm allowing for light to pass through to the lower shelf. I've had the acrylic glass cut. There's plenty of online stores that will do that for a very reasonable price. And so I've had those pre-measured pieces cut, sent back to me, and then I've actually glued them together with special acrylic glue. And in that way, I'm able to utilize, the full size of the shelf. And it's actually also allowing still for at least some light to pass through to the lower shelving levels. So as I say, rather than using standard drip trays that, for example, this one here, these are of course not going to allow any light to pass through. Instead of that, I've decided to just build my own. We'll see how that goes in the summer. Something else I did, which I thought was actually quite brilliant, was in order to create a little bit more space, I sawed off 2 legs of my potting table. Didn't saw them off completely, but actually sawed them off at just the right height to be able to move the table over to the edge of the greenhouse so that it's resting on one of the sides of the greenhouse, and in that way I've been able to move the table all the way to the side, created quite a bit of space. And that again is just something, a small activity if you like, but it does help create a bit more space. I try and keep the central area as open as I possibly can, so that it doesn't get too narrow and too busy and cluttered in the central part of the greenhouse. I've got this working table, planting table, which is sort of in the center of my greenhouse. It looks very messy at the moment because of all the work ongoing, but I noticed that there's actually quite a bit of space around and on that table that has so far not been used, and those are nice sunny spots actually, which so far have not had any cacti standing there. So I had to, of course, utilize that space as well, and so I've put in some narrow wooden shelves, which I've put a little rim around the side to avoid the pots slipping off the side of the shelf. But that has actually created a quite nice, a quite pretty little shelving area around this central working table, my potting table. And this is where I've now actually put a part of my collection of the crested cacti that I grow, because they're also very pretty to look at. And so by having them in this sort of central location, I actually can appreciate them much more than I was able to when they were all cramped up on one of the higher shelves. I've also decided to create a little community of old men from the Andes. That's the popular name, of course, of the Oreocereus trollii, the old man of the Andes cactus. And I suppose, a very aptly named plant, given all the white hair that the Oreocereus trollii has, in addition to the wonderful red-colored spines. And that actually, that hairy cover, if you like, those are very fine, thin spines, and they provide an additional insulating layer for these cacti, because they grow in very harsh conditions, up to, I think, it's 4,500 meters above sea level or so that some of these cacti grow. And you can imagine there's some pretty intense UV light there. This is in Peru, in the Andes. And, in those locations, you have intense sunlight, intense UV, but you also have freezing temperatures at night and really hot temperatures during the day. So these plants, have actually got, as a adaptation to that extreme climate, they've got these wonderful woolly hairs that, in addition to the spines, provide that protection from, the spines, of course. There's a video, by the way, on my channel on, the 4 key purposes of spines. You might want to check that out if you haven't seen it. But, apart from actually the protecting purpose, so these plants not being eaten by herbivore predators, llamas, or I don't know what would actually, want to have a bite at these. But not a good idea given the spines that they have. But then, in addition, the spines also, of course, they help with collecting moisture. And they, most importantly, with these, help with protecting against UV and sunlight. And also, they create a protective layer that actually insulates the main plant body from extreme temperatures, whether very low or very high. And so a wonderful adaptation of nature for these plants growing in these extreme conditions in the Andes. So here's my little tray or pot. It's a glazed ceramic pot that my wife actually made. She's a ceramic potter. And she created this wonderful vessel for me. And I've got, 5 Oreocereus plants, cacti, growing in there. So this is my old men from the Andes gang that I've actually placed centrally here into the greenhouse, because the other thing that, of course, I've noticed is that I've got quite a bit of space. And it's wonderful growing space because it's a very bright spot, and it's also a well aerated spot. So ideal really for some of the more columnar growing cacti, which is why I've decided to move this collection of Oreocereuses away from the side of the greenhouse where I've been having them so far, near the glass, more to the central part of the greenhouse. And like I say, they're standing in a very bright and sunny location here when it gets bright and sunny towards the summer then. But I think they'll quite like this new growing. I hope they'll like this new growing location. And certainly, they're a wonderful sight, and so having them there in the central part of the greenhouse is also just very nice from a point of view of really enjoying these beautiful columnar cacti. Something else that I've done during the winter months is I've not only created some extra shelving and space for plants, but I've also created some extra space, storage space for all kinds of tools and fertilizers and all kinds of materials that one stores in the greenhouse, pots, for example. And so I've created some space below some of the tables and shelving that I'm able to use in that way for all kinds of bits and pieces. And so that took a bit of my time as well, but generally it's actually really good fun. And with a little bit of do-it-yourself experience, it is really quite cool, the things that you can create and you can sort of custom tailor for your greenhouse, or for any other space, of course, that you're growing your plants in. Now, we've still got some pretty cold nights here. It is, after all, winter. And, even though at the moment the daytime temperatures, they do go slightly above freezing, above 0 degrees centigrade again, the nighttime will still bring some pretty strong frost in this part of the world. It's actually quite interesting to see early in the morning, after a night of frost, on the top glazing of my greenhouse, there's a thin layer of ice, of frost, and it's actually a very effective way of just checking out whether there are any sort of temperature leakages from out of the quite well insulated greenhouse. And that is, looking out for areas where the, of course, above freezing temperatured air from the greenhouse will, potentially be leaking through the insulation, be it through the double glazing that I have, and on top of the double glazing, I've also got the quite heavy duty bubble wrap insulation, which, if you're interested in that, then check out one of the videos I made just at the beginning of the winter period that gives you an idea of how I insulate and what I insulate with, in addition to the double glazed insulated glass and acrylic glass that I use on the greenhouse. I must say, touch wood, so far the insulation has actually been pretty effective this winter, and I think it was also badly needed, because we did have some pretty deep freezes during this winter so far, and hopefully there's not many more to come, hopefully no more to come, but it is still February, it is only February, and for the next 2 months during March and April, it is not uncommon for us here in Bavaria in southern Germany to actually have frost, and sometimes some pretty severe frost, way below 0 degrees centigrade. So I'm going to have the insulation for the greenhouse up still for at least those 2 months. Usually it's not before mid-April, end of April, that I actually am able to take down that insulating bubble wrap. But as I've described in another video as well, it's actually not such a bad thing to have that bubble wrap on the greenhouse during the especially April period, when the sun does get pretty intense already. But the bubble wrap allows for a really nice diffused light, and that avoids one of the dangers of the springtime with respect to what can happen to my cactus. Well, it can quite easily actually get burnt, because it's not used to intense sunlight and UV for so many months during the dormancy, and then when that intense sunlight comes through in end of March and throughout April and further into the summer, of course, but it's that first period that is really critical, and that's where you want to make sure that your plants are actually protected in some way from that direct, very intense, strong sunlight, so that you want to avoid burning of the plant surfaces, the plant epidermis, the outer skin. What's actually worked really well is the partition that I put in the greenhouse in order to separate between the main greenhouse part where I've got most of my cacti that will, they'll overwinter. They'll be in a dormancy with a temperature of round about 5 degrees centigrade. And then I've separated that main part of the greenhouse from a smaller part where I'm keeping the plants that need slightly warmer temperatures during the winter. Euphorbias and a couple of other, caudex plants. Not so much my cacti, apart from the Thanksgiving and Christmas cacti and some other epiphytic cacti, so the sort of leaf-like epicacti. They are also in this partition with slightly warmer temperatures where I keep about 12 degrees centigrade or warmer, of course, if the sun is shining during the daytime. But believe me, there's not been much sun shining over the last few weeks. It's been pretty bleak and it's been pretty grey. The generally quite high humidity that I have in my area here is, of course, not ideal at all. So I do have a dehumidifier in my greenhouse as well, and that creates a little bit of, because it does use a fair amount of electricity, of energy, but it also generates some heat, and that of course is always welcome inside the greenhouse, to have a little bit of additional heating sources in addition to the main heater that I use. But like I say, the high humidity outside, this climate of high humidity, is not ideal for cacti. And so it is really quite important for me to try and keep that humidity as relatively low as possible. It'll still be usually about 70-80% relative humidity, which is really pretty humid. But I'm afraid that's what my plants have to actually live with, and so far so good. The key thing for that, of course, is that I've always got good air movement inside the greenhouse. So I've got actually 3 electric fans that are attached to timers. So they go on at different points in time, and they create a fair amount of movement inside the greenhouse. And that's really important to avoid stagnant, humid air, which of course is an ideal breeding ground for many fungi. And obviously that's something I'm trying to avoid by all means. Now, I'd be lying if I said that I've not had any plant losses during the winter. I actually have had, luckily, only very few, but noticeably the plants that were damaged and that I have lost are actually all euphorbias. There are euphorbias that were, although they were in the slightly warmer part of the greenhouse, those 12 degrees centigrade, I suppose, either on the very cold nights we've had, temperatures may have actually dipped potentially quite a bit below those plus 12 degrees centigrade, or, and that's what I also suspect, they actually require slightly warmer even temperatures than I was able to provide them with. And so as a result, a number of euphorbias sadly were damaged during, they had cold damage, if you like, and they started rotting. Some of them were attacked by fungi, but there's 4 or 5 plants that I've lost. Like I say, primarily euphorbias, Euphorbia lactea, very painfully and sadly. They were, also a wonderful crested plant of a Euphorbia lactea, the white ghost hybrid or cultivar, which I've had for quite some time, but sadly this winter took its toll. So I hope that's been an interesting collection of various activities and things ongoing here in my greenhouse at the moment. You could call it a winter update. If you liked the video, if you found it informative, give me a like, please, or send me a comment if you've got a question or you'd like to comment on anything. I'm always really happy to read feedback from yourselves. And with respect to subscribing, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, then obviously I'd be thrilled if you did. And if you do subscribe, then I would recommend you actually also click the bell icon next to the subscribe button. And that ensures that you actually get all the updates of newly uploaded information and videos to this channel. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you very soon again. Take care and happy growing.